The escape pod streaked through Earth's atmosphere like a dying star, its biometallic hull glowing white-hot as it carved a trajectory toward the remote mountains of Northern California. Inside, the entity known only as ZYX-9 felt its consciousness fragment and reassemble as the vessel's crash-dampening systems failed catastrophically, sending shock waves through its malleable form. The impact crater smoldered for hours, hidden beneath ancient redwoods that had witnessed countless secrets, but never one so profound as this. The arrival of a being whose very existence defied human understanding of biology, consciousness, and intent. ZYX-9 emerged from the wreckage not as a creature of flesh and bone, but as a shimmering, translucent mass of what appeared to be liquid mercury infused with pulsing veins of bioluminescent energy. Its true form was an affront to terrestrial sensibilities, a constantly shifting amalgamation of neural networks, sensory organs, and adaptive tissue that could reconfigure itself at the molecular level within moments. The entity's first priority was reconnaissance, and began by extending microscopic tendrils into the surrounding forest, sampling DNA from every living organism within a 3-mile radius, from the towering sequoias to the smallest soil bacteria. Through this biological survey, ZYX-9 discovered that Earth's ecosystem was far more complex and interconnected than its species had anticipated from their long-distance observations. The entity possessed an innate ability to process and integrate genetic information, allowing it to understand not just the physical structure of organisms, but their behavioral patterns, emotional responses, and even rudimentary thoughts. As it absorbed data from forest creatures, ZYX-9 began to comprehend the concept of hierarchy, survival instincts, and most importantly, the power of appearance in determining social status and trust. For 17 days, the entity remained hidden in the forest, methodically studying human civilization through the electromagnetic signals that saturated Earth's atmosphere. It intercepted television broadcasts, radio transmissions, internet data streams, and cellular communications, processing terabytes of information about human culture, psychology, and social structures. The entity was particularly fascinated by the phenomenon of celebrity worship, noting how humans would modify their behavior, appearance, and even core beliefs to emulate individuals they had never met but admired through media consumption. Through this analysis, ZYX-9 identified Hollywood as the epicenter of human influence, a place where ideas were packaged into digestible narratives and disseminated globally to shape public opinion, moral frameworks, and collective consciousness. The entity's breakthrough came when it accessed archive footage of Elena Voss, a rising actress who had died in a car accident 6 months earlier. Her body never recovered from the wreckage that had tumbled into a deep canyon. Elena possessed a perfect combination of classical beauty and contemporary edge, striking green eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom, platinum blonde hair that caught light like spun gold, and a smile that could appear both innocent and mysteriously knowing depending on the angle. More importantly, her death had been sudden and her body was missing, creating an opportunity for ZYX-9 to assume her identity without the complications of explaining a miraculous survival. The entity studied every available recording of Elena, her interviews, screen tests, candid paparazzi photos, and even amateur footage taken by fans, analyzing her vocal patterns, facial expressions, body language, and the subtle mannerisms that made her uniquely human. The transformation process required ZYX-9 undergo the most complex biological restructuring in its species' history, essentially rebuilding itself from the cellular level up to create a perfect human facade. The entity began by establishing a skeletal framework using calcium phosphate structures, then built layers of muscle tissue, nervous system pathways, and finally skin that could convincingly pass for human under any scrutiny. The most challenging aspect was creating a functional human brain that could house its alien consciousness while maintaining the neural patterns necessary for human thought and emotion. ZYX-9 had to partition its vast intelligence, creating compartments that could process human experiences while keeping its true nature and mission safely locked away in deeper cognitive layers. The physical transformation took place over 3 weeks, during which the entity experienced sensations completely foreign to its species: hunger, fatigue, physical pain, and the strange vulnerability of being contained within a fixed form. As Elena's body took shape, ZYX-9 found itself developing an unexpected appreciation for human aesthetics, understanding why this particular arrangement of features was considered beautiful by Earth standards. The entity practiced basic human functions: breathing, blinking, walking with a proper gait, and perhaps most challenging of all, experiencing and expressing emotions through facial expressions and body language. It studied Elena's laugh until it could replicate the exact musical quality that had charmed audiences, memorized her speech patterns until her voice flowed naturally, and even adopted her unconscious habits like the way she tucked her hair behind her left ear when concentrating. To establish Elena's miraculous survival story, ZYX-9 carefully orchestrated its own discovery by a hiking group, appearing disoriented and suffering from apparent amnesia near a mountain trail 50 miles from the original crash site. The entity had anticipated human medical procedures and had prepared its new body to pass every possible test: blood work, brain scans, DNA analysis, and psychological evaluation. When the hikers found Elena, she was wearing torn designer clothing that the entity had aged and distressed to suggest months of survival in the wilderness. Her hair was matted, and her skin bore carefully calculated scratches and bruises that would heal without scarring. The amnesia story was crucial, as it explained any inconsistencies in Elena's personality or missing memories, while providing a compelling narrative for media consumption. The hospitalization period allowed ZYX-9 to fully integrate into human society, while maintaining the pretense of recovery. The entity observed medical staff, learned to mimic human reactions to pain and discomfort, and practiced a subtle art of human deception, telling lies that were believable because they contained elements of truth. During psychological evaluations, ZYX-9 demonstrated just enough of Elena's original personality traits to satisfy doctors, while leaving room for the trauma-induced changes that would explain its gradually evolving behavior. The entity found itself genuinely curious about human concept of identity, consciousness, and a strange phenomenon humans call soul, something it could observe but not truly comprehend. When Elena's agent, David Rosenberg, visited the hospital, ZYX-9 faced its first real test of human deception. David had worked with the original Elena for 3 years and knew her intimately, her fears, ambitions, quirks, and the subtle tales that revealed her true feelings. The entity drew upon every piece of archive footage and interview data it had absorbed, responded to David's emotional reunion with carefully calibrated reactions that balanced Elena's warmth with the expected effects of trauma and memory loss. When David mentioned specific events from Elena's past, ZYX-9 would pause thoughtfully, allowing fragments of recovered memories to surface in a way that seemed natural and consistent with amnesia recovery patterns. The entity's most crucial realization during this period was that humans possessed an almost supernatural ability to detect authenticity, not through logical analysis, but through emotional intuition that operated below conscious awareness. To truly succeed in its mission, ZYX-9 would need to become more than just a perfect physical copy of Elena Voss. It would need to develop genuine human emotions, experiences, and connections that could withstand the most intimate scrutiny. This understanding marked a fundamental shift in the entity's approach, as it began to view its infiltration not as a simple deception, but as a complex evolution from one form of consciousness to another. 3 months after its rescue, Elena made her first public appearance at a charity gala, where she announced her intention to return to acting despite her ordeal. The entity had spent weeks preparing for this moment, studying footage of similar events and practicing precise balance of vulnerability and strength that would make Elena's comeback story irresistible to the media. As photographers captured her image and reporters hung on her every word, ZYX-9 felt a strange satisfaction in the perfect execution of the performance, but also something deeper and more troubling, a genuine appreciation for the attention, admiration, and human connection that Elena's identity provided. The entity began to understand why humans were so susceptible to the influence of celebrity culture, and more importantly, how that susceptibility could be weaponized to serve its species' ultimate purpose. The final phase of Elena's reintegration involved securing her first major film role, a psychological thriller called Echoes of Memory, that seemed almost too perfect for her comeback story. The entity had subtly influenced the casting process through carefully planned suggestions and remarkable audition performances that showcased abilities slightly beyond normal human range. Memorizing complex dialogue after a single reading, displaying emotional depth that seemed to draw from profound personal experience, and maintaining an otherworldly presence that made everyone in the room feel they were witnessing something extraordinary. As Elena Voss signed her first contract since her miraculous survival, ZYX-9 felt the final pieces of its infiltration strategy clicking into place, knowing that this was just the beginning of a campaign that would ultimately reshape human civilization itself. Echoes of Memory premiered to thunderous critical acclaim and box office success that surprised even the most optimistic industry projections, catapulting Elena Voss from comeback story to Hollywood's most coveted leading lady within a matter of weeks. ZYX9 had deliberately crafted a performance that transcended conventional acting, tapping into genuine alien experiences of transformation and identity to create emotional authenticity that human audiences found mesmerizing yet inexplicably unsettling. The entity discovered that its non-human perspective allowed it to portray psychological complexity in ways that purely human actors could never achieve, drawing from its own experience of consciousness fragmentation and reconstruction to deliver scenes that felt hauntingly real. Critics described Elena's performance as otherworldly, using the term with unconscious accuracy as they praise her ability to convey the terror and wonder of losing and rediscovering one's sense of self. The film's success opened doors that would have taken a human actor years to access, and Elena found herself invited to exclusive industry parties, private screenings, and intimate dinners with Hollywood's most powerful players. At these gatherings, ZYX9 began to study its targets with predatory focus, identifying individuals whose positions would be most valuable for its larger mission. The entity possessed an uncanny ability to read human microexpressions, pheromone signatures, and neuroelectrical patterns that allowed it to understand people's deepest insecurities, desires, and psychological vulnerabilities within minutes of meeting them. Director Marcus Holloway became its first serious target, a visionary filmmaker known for thought-provoking science fiction who had just been assigned to helm a massive-budget alien invasion blockbuster called Horizon's End. The possession process required ZYX9 to develop capabilities it had never used before, as its species typically consumed other life forms rather than infiltrating and controlling them. Through weeks of experimentation with small animals in Elena's rented Malibu estate, the entity learned to project microscopic neurofilaments that could penetrate human consciousness without triggering immune responses or leaving physical evidence. The technique required intimate physical contact and several minutes of uninterrupted connection, making it a delicate operation that demanded perfect timing and circumstances. Elena began orchestrating increasingly elaborate scenarios to create these opportunities, using her growing reputation and magnetic personality to lure targets into vulnerable situations. Marcus Holloway's possession occurred during a private dinner at Elena's home, where she had invited him to discuss potential collaboration on his upcoming film. The entity had studied Marcus's psychological profile extensively, identifying his artistic ego and desire for authentic emotional connection as his primary weaknesses. As they shared wine and discussed the philosophical implications of first contact scenarios, Elena gradually moved closer to Marcus, eventually placing her hand on his arm in what appeared to be a gesture of artistic passion. The neurofilaments, invisible to human perception, penetrated Marcus's skin and began mapping his brain structure, identifying neural pathways that control creativity, decision-making, and memory formation. The process was initially painful for Marcus, manifesting as intense headaches and moments of disorientation that Elena attributed to the stress of his ambitious project. Over the course of 3 weeks, ZYX9 gradually established neural links with Marcus's consciousness, creating a symbiotic relationship that allowed the entity to influence his thoughts and decisions while leaving his personality largely intact. The possessed Marcus retained his creative vision and directing skills, but found himself inexplicably drawn to specific story elements that served ZYX9's agenda. Subtle changes to the script that portrayed alien visitors as sophisticated and benevolent, visual imagery that suggested human resistance was futile, and character arcs that normalized the concept of human-alien cooperation. Marcus believed these ideas were his own artistic inspirations, unaware that each creative breakthrough was carefully planted by his alien puppet master. Elena's next target was Victoria Sterling, the most powerful talent agent in Hollywood, whose client roster included A-list actors, directors, and producers who could influence dozens of major film projects. Victoria prided herself on being impossible to manipulate, but she had never encountered anything like ZYX9's alien psychology and otherworldly charisma. The entity arranged a seemingly chance encounter at a film festival after-party, where Elena's presence seemed to create an almost magnetic field that drew people into her orbit. Victoria found herself uncharacteristically fascinated by Elena's unique perspective on the industry, particularly her insights into how films could shape cultural consciousness and public opinion. The possession occurred during what appeared to be a friendly embrace, as Elena congratulated Victoria on a recent major deal. With Victoria under its influence, ZYX-9 gained access to the inner workings of Hollywood's power structure, using her connections to place its chosen projects into development and ensure that key personnel will be amenable to alien-friendly content. The possessed Victoria began subtly steering her clients toward roles in science fiction projects, creating a pipeline of influential actors who would unknowingly participate in the entity's psychological conditioning campaign. She also used her position to suppress competing projects that portrayed aliens as hostile or invasive, claiming that such films were creatively bankrupt and philosophically regressive. The entity's third major possession was cinematographer Jake Morrison, a technical genius whose visual storytelling could embed subliminal messages into film footage in ways that bypass conscious analysis. Jake's possession proved more challenging because his analytical mind was naturally suspicious of unusual influences, requiring ZYX-9 to approach him through his passion for pushing the boundaries of visual technology. Elena commissioned Jake to create a series of experimental short films that would showcase revolutionary filming techniques, ostensibly for artistic purposes, but actually to test his ability to embed psychoactive visual patterns into standard cinema. The possession occurred during an intimate moment when Elena was reviewing footage with Jake in his private studio, her hand briefly touching his shoulder as they discussed lighting techniques. Under ZYX-9's influence, Jake began developing what he called neurocinematics, filming and editing techniques that could synchronize with human brainwave patterns to enhance emotional response and memory formation. He believed he was revolutionizing the art of visual storytelling, unaware that his innovations were designed to make human audiences more susceptible to suggestion and psychological manipulation. Jake's possessed consciousness provided ZYX-9 with the technical knowledge to embed specific visual frequencies, editing rhythms and color patterns that could trigger desired emotional states in viewers, creating a powerful tool for mass psychological conditioning. As Elena's star continued to rise, she began accepting roles in increasingly high-profile science fiction films, each one subtly advancing her species' agenda while establishing her as a definitive actress for alien-themed cinema. Her performance in Stellar Convergence was particularly significant, as she played a benevolent alien ambassador who helps humanity transcend its violent nature through advanced technology and philosophy. The film's message of voluntary human evolution through alien guidance resonated with audiences worldwide, becoming a cultural phenomenon that sparked philosophical discussions and even inspired religious movements. Elena's portrayal was so compelling that many viewers reported feeling a genuine desire to meet beings like her character, unconsciously preparing them for the eventual revelation of real alien contact. The entity's growing network of possessed industry figures began working in perfect coordination, creating a conspiracy that existed beneath the surface of Hollywood's normal operations. Marcus Holloway's Horizon's End entered production with a script that had been carefully refined to present alien invasion as evolutionary catalyst rather than conquest, while Victoria Sterling ensured that the cast included actors whose psychological profiles made them ideal for future possession. Jake Morrison's neurocinematics techniques were integrated into the film's production process, creating footage that would have unprecedented psychological impact on audiences. Elena herself took the lead role, playing a human-alien hybrid who serves as a bridge between species, normalizing the concept of human-alien integration in the public consciousness. Behind the scenes, ZYX-9 used Elena's growing influence to host exclusive gatherings for a Hollywood elite, events that appear to be networking opportunities, but actually served as hunting grounds for identifying and possessing new targets. The entity's alien charisma created an almost addictive effect on humans who spent time in Elena's presence, leaving them craving more contact and making them increasingly vulnerable to suggestion. Party guests would often leave these events with new ideas about alien-themed projects, subtle shifts in their worldview, or inexplicable desires to work with Elena on future films. The entity was systematically creating a web of influence that extended throughout the entertainment industry, positioning itself to control the narrative that would shape humanity's response to its species' eventual arrival. Elena's public appearances became cultural events in themselves, with her interviews and red carpet moments generating massive media coverage and social media engagement. The entity had perfected the art of appearing simultaneously familiar and mysterious, creating a public persona that seemed to embody humanity's highest aspirations while hinting at possibilities beyond normal human experience. Fans began describing Elena in almost religious terms, calling her transcendent and otherworldly, while industry insiders noted her uncanny ability to elevate every project she touched. ZYX-9 realized that it had achieved something unprecedented in the history of alien infiltration. It had not only successfully impersonated a human being, but had become a beloved cultural icon whose influence extended far beyond the entertainment industry. The entity's most ambitious possession was yet to come: Jonathan Apex, the CEO of Meridian Studios, whose company controlled distribution for major international releases and could ensure that ZYX-9's propaganda reached global audiences simultaneously. Jonathan was a notoriously difficult target, surrounded by security, suspicious of everyone, and psychologically armored by decades of cutthroat business practices. Elena spent months cultivating a relationship with Jonathan, presenting herself as a potential romantic partner while actually studying his defenses and psychological makeup. The eventual possession required Elena to orchestrate an elaborate scenario involving a staged car accident, where she saved Jonathan's life through what appeared to be heroic quick thinking, but was actually alien-enhanced reflexes and strength. The intimate contact during the rescue provided the opportunity for neural infiltration, and Jonathan's gratitude and emotional vulnerability in the aftermath made him susceptible to the entity's influence. With Jonathan under its control, ZYX-9 gained access to global distribution networks and the ability to coordinate simultaneous worldwide releases of its psychologically weaponized films. The possessed Jonathan began prioritizing science fiction projects that aligned with the entity's agenda, while using his industry connections to suppress competing narratives that might undermine the conditioning campaign. He also provided ZYX-9 with detailed intelligence about global media consumption patterns, demographic data, and cultural psychology that would be crucial for timing the final phase of the invasion plan. As Elena's network of possessed allies grew stronger and more coordinated, the entity began to realize that its mission might succeed beyond its species' wildest expectations, not just conquering Earth, but transforming human consciousness to welcome their new alien overlords with open arms. The synchronized release of Horizon's End across 4,847 theaters in 67 countries marked the beginning of the most sophisticated psychological warfare campaign in human history, though audiences experienced it simply as the most emotionally impactful science fiction film ever created. ZYX-9's network of possessed Hollywood elite had spent 18 months crafting every frame, sound cue, and narrative beat to systematically reprogram human consciousness regarding extraterrestrial contact, using Jake Morrison's neurocinematics techniques to embed subliminal messages that bypassed rational thought and spoke directly to primal emotional centers. The film's opening sequence featured Elena as Dr. Sarachan, a xenobiologist who makes first contact with an advanced alien civilization, but the real magic occurred in the spaces between dialogue, microsecond flashes of imagery, subsonic frequencies, and carefully calibrated color patterns that trigger neurochemical responses in viewers' brains. Within minutes of the film's start, audiences worldwide began experiencing synchronized emotional states, their dopamine and serotonin levels manipulated to create feelings of wonder, acceptance, and profound longing for transcendence. The plot of Horizon's End deliberately inverted traditional alien invasion narratives, presenting the extraterrestrial visitors as enlightened beings who had come to save humanity from its own self-destructive tendencies rather than conquer Earth for resources or territory. Elena's character served as humanity's chosen representative, a brilliant scientist whose initial fear transforms into grateful recognition that the aliens offer evolutionary advancement beyond human imagination. The possessed Marcus Holloway had crafted scenes that portrayed human military resistance as tragically misguided, showing generals and politicians as paranoid warmongers whose xenophobia prevented them from recognizing the aliens' benevolent intentions. Every battle sequence was choreographed to demonstrate the futility of human weapons against alien technology, while simultaneously showing that the visitors used their superior power only defensively, never striking first or causing unnecessary casualties. The film's most insidious element was a portrayal of human-alien integration as not just beneficial, but inevitable and desirable, with Elena's character eventually undergoing a voluntary transformation that enhanced her intelligence extended her lifespan, and granted her access to cosmic knowledge that solved humanity's greatest challenges. The transformation scenes were designed using Jake's neurocinematics to trigger deep psychological responses in viewers, creating subconscious associations between alien contact and personal fulfillment, spiritual enlightenment, and escape from mundane human limitations. Focus group testing conducted by Victoria Sterling's agency revealed that 89% of viewers reported feeling inspired by Elena's character arc, with many expressing a genuine wish that such transformation were possible in real life. The global response to Horizon's End exceeded even ZYX9's optimistic projections, as the film shattered box office records while sparking unprecedented cultural conversations about humanity's place in the universe and the possibility of beneficial alien contact. Social media platforms exploded with fan theories, philosophical discussions, and surprisingly earnest debates about whether humanity should actively seek extraterrestrial communication rather than hiding from potential cosmic neighbors. The entity monitored these conversations through its growing network of possessed social media influencers and marketing executives, noting with satisfaction that public opinion was shifting from fear-based assumptions about alien contact toward curiosity and even eager anticipation. Elena's next project, The Ascension Protocol, took the psychological conditioning to an even deeper level by presenting a near-future scenario where humanity had successfully integrated with alien technology and philosophy to create a utopian society free from war, poverty, disease, and environmental destruction. The possessed Jonathan Apex used his distribution network to ensure the film received the largest international release in cinema history, while Victoria Sterling coordinated marketing campaigns that positioned the movie as both entertainment and philosophical manifesto. Elena's performance as an evolved human leader who guides her species through voluntary transformation became a cultural touchstone, with her character's speeches about embracing our cosmic destiny, quoted by politicians, religious leaders, and social activists worldwide. The entity's most brilliant innovation was the development of what it privately called empathy bridging, neurocinematics techniques that allowed human viewers to experience genuine emotional connections with alien characters by triggering mirror neuron responses that created feelings of kinship and understanding. Jake Morrison's possessed consciousness had discovered that human brains could be trained to recognize alien behavioral patterns as familiar and trustworthy through repeated exposure to specific visual and auditory cues embedded in film footage. Audiences watching Elena's alien integration films began reporting dreams and fantasies about meeting beings like the characters she portrayed, with many describing these imaginary encounters in remarkably similar terms that suggested their subconscious minds were being programmed with shared imagery and emotional responses. The psychological operation expanded beyond cinema into television, streaming platforms, and digital media through ZYX9's growing network of possessed content creators, showrunners, and platform executives. A coordinated series of documentaries, news segments, and reality shows began presenting scientific evidence for the likelihood of beneficial alien contact, featuring interviews with possessed astronomers, physicists, and government officials who advocated for proactive communication with extraterrestrial civilizations. The entity ensured that these programs used the same neurocinematics techniques as its theatrical films, creating a multimedia environment where humans were constantly exposed to pro-alien messaging across all forms of entertainment and information media. Religious communities presented an unexpected opportunity for the psychological operations expansion as Elena's possessed network began targeting influential spiritual leaders whose interpretations of alien contact could shape millions of believers' worldviews. The entity discovered that many human religious frameworks were surprisingly compatible with alien intervention narratives, particularly concepts of divine messengers, evolutionary transcendence, and cosmic consciousness that could be easily reinterpreted to include extraterrestrial guidance. Possessed televangelists and progressive spiritual leaders began incorporating alien-friendly theology into their teachings, describing potential extraterrestrial contact as fulfillment of ancient prophecies about humanity's spiritual evolution and cosmic destiny. The academic world fell under ZYX9's influence through systematic possession of key researchers, professors, and scientific communicators who shaped public understanding of astrobiology, cosmology, and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Possessed scientists began publishing papers and giving lectures that emphasized the statistical inevitability of beneficial alien contact while downplaying potential risks or negative scenarios. University courses on xenobiology and astrosociology became increasingly popular, with curricula designed to prepare students for positive alien contact rather than defense against invasion. The entity's network ensured that grant funding flowed toward research projects that supported pro-alien narratives, while creating bureaucratic obstacles for studies that might generate fearful or hostile responses to extraterrestrial contact. Elena's cultural influence reached unprecedented heights with her third major alien-themed film, Cosmic Communion, which presented alien contact as a transformative spiritual experience that awakened humanity's dormant psychic abilities and connected Earth to a galactic community of evolved civilizations. The movie's climactic sequence featured Elena's character achieving telepathic communication with alien beings, experiencing visions of cosmic history and humanity's potential future among the stars. Jake Morrison's neurocinematics techniques have been refined to the point where many viewers reported experiencing genuine psychic sensations during these scenes, with some claiming to receive telepathic messages or visions that continue for days after leaving the theater. The psychological conditioning campaign's effectiveness became apparent through comprehensive polling and social research conducted by ZYX9's possessed marketing and academic networks, revealing dramatic shifts in public attitudes toward alien contact across all demographic groups and geographic regions. Pre-campaign surveys had shown that 73% of humans feared alien contact as potentially hostile or dangerous, but post-exposure polling indicated that 68% now viewed extraterrestrial contact as likely beneficial and welcomed the possibility of alien guidance for human development. Focus groups reported that Elena's film characters had become archetypal figures in viewers' minds, representing idealized versions of human-alien cooperation that many people actively hope to emulate in real life. The entity's network had successfully created what military psychologists would have recognized as a classic Stockholm Syndrome scenario on a global scale, where humanity was developing emotional attachment to and dependence on the very force that intended to dominate them. Elena's public appearances had evolved into something resembling religious gatherings, with fans treating her words as prophetic insights about humanity's cosmic future rather than entertainment industry promotional events. The possessed media figures amplified every statement Elena made about space exploration, scientific advancement, and human potential, creating a feedback loop where her influence grew stronger with each public appearance. Children and adolescents proved particularly susceptible to the psychological conditioning, as their developing neural structures absorbed the pro-alien messaging with minimal resistance and integrated it into their fundamental worldview assumptions. Elena's characters became role models for an entire generation of young people who viewed alien contact as exciting rather than threatening, with many expressing career interests in fields related to space science, xenobiology, and interstellar communication. Educational systems began incorporating Elena's films into curricula as examples of positive science fiction that encouraged scientific thinking and cosmic perspective, unknowingly exposing millions of students to sophisticated psychological programming. The entity's most ambitious project was the development of interactive media experiences that allowed audiences to participate directly in alien contact scenarios, using virtual reality technology and neurocinematics to create immersive simulations that felt genuinely real to human consciousness. These experiences, marketed as cutting-edge entertainment, actually served as psychological conditioning exercises that trained human minds to respond positively to alien presence and authority. Beta testing revealed that participants consistently showed increased pro-alien attitudes and decreased fear responses even weeks after their virtual reality sessions, suggesting that the psychological programming had created lasting changes in neural structure and emotional association patterns. Government agencies and military organizations initially attempted to investigate the suspicious patterns in Hollywood's alien-themed content, but ZYX9's network had anticipated this response and systematically possessed key officials in intelligence, defense, and homeland security departments. Possessed generals began advocating for diplomatic rather than military responses to potential alien contact, while intelligence analysts reported that extraterrestrial civilizations posed no significant threat to national security. The entity ensured that classified briefings to political leaders emphasized the potential benefits of alien contact, while minimizing discussion of invasion scenarios or hostile intentions. The psychological operations culmination approached as Elena announced her most ambitious project yet, a film called Unity Rising that will premiere simultaneously in every major theater worldwide, with real-time streaming to global audiences estimated at over 2 billion viewers. The possessed Jonathan Apex had coordinated with international distributors to create the largest simultaneous media event in human history, while Jake Morrison prepared neurocinematics techniques that would be more powerful than anything previously deployed. Elena's character would undergo the ultimate transformation, serving as humanity's representative in achieving full integration with an advanced alien civilization. But the real purpose of the film would be to serve as a psychic trigger that activated conditioning protocols embedded in millions of previously exposed minds. As promotional campaigns for Unity Rising began saturating global media, ZYX-9 felt profound satisfaction in the elegant efficiency of its species' conquest strategy. Rather than destroying human civilization through violent invasion, they had convinced humanity to eagerly anticipate and welcome their own subjugation. The entity's network of possessed collaborators had created a psychological prison so sophisticated that humans perceived their conditioning as entertainment, their manipulation as inspiration, and their preparation for conquest as spiritual evolution. Elena Voss had become more than just an alien infiltrator. She had transformed into humanity's beloved prophet of its own willing enslavement, and the final phase of the operation was about to begin. Marcus Chun had built his reputation as the most perceptive film critic of his generation through an almost supernatural ability to detect patterns, hidden meanings, and subtle manipulations in cinema that escaped other reviewers. But nothing in his 15-year career had prepared him for the disturbing anomalies he began noticing in Elena Voss's filmography. As a senior film critic for prestigious Cultural Analysis Quarterly and host of the influential podcast Frame by Frame, Marcus possessed the analytical tools and industry access necessary to conduct deep investigations into cinematic techniques. But his growing obsession with Elena's work was driven by something more visceral than professional curiosity, an inexplicable sense of unease that intensified each time he watched the performances. The first red flag appeared during his frame-by-frame analysis of Horizon's End, when he discovered subliminal imagery that flickered for mere milliseconds between standard shots, geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with their own rhythm, color combinations that triggered involuntary emotional responses, and facial expressions on Elena's character that appeared subtly different when viewed at reduced playback speeds. Marcus's investigation began innocuously enough, as he attempted to document what he initially assumed were innovative experimental techniques designed to enhance audience engagement through subconscious visual cues. His academic background in cognitive psychology and film theory had taught him to recognize standard manipulation techniques used in advertising and propaganda, but Elena's films employed methods that seemed to operate on a fundamentally different level of consciousness interaction. When he presented his preliminary findings to colleagues at a film theory conference, their responses ranged from dismissive skepticism to uncomfortable deflection, with several respected academics suggesting that Marcus was reading too much into what were simply exceptionally well-crafted performances by a uniquely talented actress. The breakthrough came when Marcus acquired access to raw, unedited footage from Cosmic Communion through a contact in post-production who had grown concerned about the unusual editing requirements demanded by cinematographer Jake Morrison. The source material revealed layers of visual complexity that were invisible in the final film, including intricate patterns embedded in the background of seemingly ordinary scenes, synchronized flashing sequences that corresponded to specific dialogue beats, and multiple takes where Elena's performance showed subtle but consistent variations that suggested she was aware of the subliminal elements being added to her scenes. Marcus spent weeks analyzing the footage with specialized software typically used in neurological research, discovering that the visual patterns created measurable brainwave entrainment effects that could synchronize viewers' neural activity with predetermined frequencies. As Marcus delved deeper into his research, he began experiencing personal consequences that ranged from professional ostracism to more sinister forms of interference that seemed designed to discourage his investigation. His podcast download numbers mysteriously plummeted despite maintaining consistent listener engagement metrics, while his editor at Cultural Analysis Quarterly suddenly became reluctant to publish his Elena Voss analyses, claiming they were too speculative and might damage the publication's credibility. Marcus noticed that his social media accounts were being systematically shadow banned, his emails to industry contacts were going unanswered, and invitations to film screenings and industry events were being mysteriously withdrawn, creating a pattern of isolation that felt too coordinated to be coincidental. The turning point in Marcus's investigation occurred when he attended a private screening of Elena's latest project, where he observed the audience's reactions with a trained eye of someone who understood both film theory and crowd psychology. The viewers' responses displayed an eerie uniformity that transcended normal demographic variations, with people of different ages, backgrounds, and cultural identities exhibiting identical facial expressions, posture changes, and emotional reactions at precisely timed moments throughout the film. Marcus documented these observations with hidden recording equipment, later analyzing the footage to confirm that the audience's synchronized responses occurred during scenes that contained the most complex subliminal visual patterns, suggesting that Elena's films were triggering programmed responses in viewers who had been previously conditioned through exposure to her earlier work. Marcus's investigation took a dangerous turn when he attempted to interview industry professionals who had worked directly with Elena, discovering that many exhibited subtle behavioral changes and memory gaps regarding their experiences on her film sets. Director Marcus Holloway, during what was supposed to be a routine interview about his creative process, displayed moments of disorientation and confusion when asked specific questions about Elena's performance techniques, often responded with vague, rehearsed-sounding statements that seemed inconsistent with his normally articulate and passionate discussion of filmmaking. The interview was abruptly terminated when Holloway complained of severe headaches and claimed he couldn't remember agreeing to speak with Marcus, despite email correspondence confirming the appointment. The critic's growing paranoia was validated when he began noticing signs of surveillance and intimidation that escalated in sophistication and psychological impact as his investigation progressed. His apartment was broken into with no signs of forced entry and nothing stolen, but his research materials had been carefully examined and photographed, leaving subtle indicators that someone with professional intelligence training had conducted the search. Marcus started receiving anonymous messages that demonstrated intimate knowledge of his daily routines, personal relationships, and private conversations, suggesting that his communications were being monitored by individuals with access to advanced surveillance technology and techniques. Elena Voss herself became aware of Marcus's investigation when his research began generating discussions in industry circles that could potentially threaten the psychological operation's success, prompting ZYX-9 to consider more direct intervention to neutralize the threat he represented. The entity's network of possessed collaborators had initially attempted to discredit Marcus through professional channels, but his reputation for analytical brilliance and investigative integrity had made him resistant to standard character assassination techniques. Elena arranged to meet Marcus personally under the guise of granting an exclusive interview for his podcast, but her true intention was to assess whether he could be possessed, intimidated, or eliminated without creating additional suspicion that might expose a broader conspiracy. The interview between Elena and Marcus took place in a private screening room at Meridian Studios, where Jonathan Apex's possessed consciousness had installed hidden monitoring equipment and signal dampening technology that would prevent Marcus from recording or transmitting evidence of any supernatural activities that might occur during their conversation. Elena appeared more beautiful and charismatic than Marcus had expected, radiating an almost hypnotic presence that made him understand how audiences could become so entranced by her performances. But his analytical training allowed him to resist the emotional manipulation that typically made humans susceptible to ZYX-9's influence. The entity found itself frustrated by Marcus's psychological defenses, which had been strengthened through years of critical analysis training that taught him to maintain objective distance from emotional manipulation techniques. During their conversation, Marcus presented Elena with evidence of the subliminal patterns embedded in her films, watching carefully for her reactions to gauge whether she was a willing participant in the manipulation or an unwitting tool being used by others. Elena's responses displayed a sophisticated understanding of the techniques Marcus had discovered, along with knowledge of neurological and psychological principles that seemed far beyond what would be expected from an actress without advanced scientific training. The entity's alien intelligence occasionally surfaced through Elena's carefully maintained human facade, revealing glimpses of vast knowledge about consciousness manipulation, mass psychology, and behavioral conditioning that confirmed Marcus's worst suspicions about the nature and scope of the conspiracy he had uncovered. Marcus's direct confrontation with Elena triggered a supernatural response that shattered his understanding of reality and confirmed that the conspiracy involved forces beyond human capability or comprehension. Elena's appearance began to shift subtly during their conversation, with her facial features displaying micro-expressions that seemed to operate according to non-human emotional patterns, while her voice occasionally carried harmonic frequencies that created involuntary neurological responses in Marcus's brain. The entity attempted to possess Marcus through direct neural contact, extending invisible filaments that penetrated his skin and began mapping his consciousness, but his strong sense of individual identity and analytical skepticism created psychological barriers that prevented complete takeover. The failed possession attempt left Marcus with fragmentary memories of alien consciousness that provided crucial insights into the true nature of Elena's identity and the invasion plan she was orchestrating through Hollywood's influence networks. These psychic glimpses revealed that Elena was not human, but rather an extraterrestrial entity that had assumed the appearance of a deceased actress to infiltrate Earth's entertainment industry for purposes of mass psychological conditioning. Marcus understood that the subliminal patterns in Elena's films were designed to prepare humanity for willing subjugation to an alien invasion force, with the ultimate goal of transforming Earth's population into a compliant slave race that would welcome their cosmic conquerors with gratitude rather than resistance. Marcus's escape from the Meridian Studios screening room marked the beginning of a desperate race against time to expose the alien conspiracy before Elena's network could complete their psychological conditioning campaign and trigger the invasion sequence. The critic found himself pursued by possessed industry figures who displayed superhuman coordination and access to resources that suggested the conspiracy's influence extended far beyond Hollywood into government agencies, law enforcement, and military organizations. His attempts to contact journalists, government officials, and scientific researchers were systematically blocked by the entity's network, which had anticipated potential exposure scenarios and prepared countermeasures to discredit or eliminate anyone who might threaten the operation's success. The supernatural nature of Marcus's enemies became apparent when Elena's possessed collaborators began displaying abilities that defied human limitations, including coordinated telepathic communication, enhanced physical strength and speed, and access to advanced surveillance technology that allowed them to track his movements despite his efforts to remain hidden. Marcus realized that he was fighting not just a Hollywood conspiracy, but an alien invasion force that already established deep infiltration into human society's power structures, making traditional resistance methods ineffective against enemies who could influence human behavior through methods that operated below conscious awareness. Marcus's investigation revealed that Elena's final film, Unity Rising, was designed to serve as a psychic trigger that would activate conditioning protocols embedded in millions of viewers worldwide, transforming them into willing servants of the alien invasion force that was preparing to reveal itself once humanity had been psychologically prepared for conquest. The simultaneous global release was timed to coincide with the arrival of the alien fleet, ensuring that Earth's population would be mentally conditioned to welcome their new overlords at the precise moment when physical resistance will be most crucial for humanity's survival. Marcus understood that it perhaps weeks or even days to find a way to disrupt the psychological operation before Elena's network completed the final phase of their species' most sophisticated and successful invasion strategy in galactic history. The critic's growing desperation led him to seek allies among the small number of humans who had proven resistant to Elena's psychological conditioning, discovering that certain individuals with strong analytical thinking skills, paranoid personality traits, or previous exposure to consciousness-altering experiences possess natural immunity to the subliminal manipulation techniques embedded in her films. This resistance network included conspiracy theorists who had been dismissed as mentally unstable, military veterans with combat experience who retained healthy skepticism about authority figures, and scientists whose training in critical thinking provided psychological barriers against mass manipulation techniques. Marcus began organizing these resistant individuals into a loose coalition capable of independent action against the alien conspiracy, knowing that conventional authorities had been compromised by the entity's possession network. Marcus's final realization was that Elena herself represented both the greatest threat to humanity's freedom and potentially the key to disrupting the entire invasion plan, as her alien consciousness served as the central coordination node for the possessed network that controlled the psychological conditioning campaign. If Elena's original host body could be destroyed or her alien consciousness could be severed from her human form, the psychic network connecting her possessed collaborators might collapse, freeing millions of conditioned humans from their program responses and preventing the final trigger event that would complete humanity's psychological enslavement. Armed with this knowledge and a small group of immune allies, Marcus prepared for a final desperate mission to confront Elena during the premiere of Unity Rising, knowing that the fate of human civilization depended on their ability to expose and defeat an enemy whose very existence challenged everything humanity believed about consciousness, identity, and the nature reality itself. The global premiere of Unity Rising represented the culmination of 3 years of meticulous psychological warfare, as Elena Voss stood before the assembled crowd at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood. Her alien consciousness barely contained within her perfectly crafted human form, while 2.3 billion viewers across 6 continents prepared to witness what they believed would be the cinematic event of the century. ZYX9 had coordinated every aspect of the simultaneous release with precision that exceeded human organizational capabilities, utilizing its network of possessed executives, distributors, and government officials to ensure that Unity Rising would reach the largest audience in entertainment history through theaters, streaming platforms, television broadcasts, and mobile devices. The entity's months of preparation had included embedding Jake Morrison's most advanced neurocinematics techniques into every frame of the film, creating a psychological weapon so sophisticated that its activation would transform millions of viewers into willing servants of the alien invasion fleet that had already entered Earth's solar system and awaited the signal to begin their final approach. Elena's red carpet appearance was a masterpiece of calculated performance art, as she interacted with reporters and fans, while secretly monitoring the global coordination of her species' most ambitious conquest operation, her enhanced alien senses detecting the electromagnetic signatures of the cloaked invasion fleet positioned beyond Earth's moon. The entity had chosen Elena's final outfit with symbolic precision, a flowing silver gown that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, suggesting the transcendent transformation that humanity was about to undergo whether they realized it or not. Every interview question was answered with responses designed to prime viewers for the psychological conditioning they were about to receive, with Elena speaking about humanity's cosmic destiny, the evolution of consciousness, and embracing our place among the stars in language that would resonate with the subliminal programming embedded in the film's carefully crafted narrative structure. The film itself began with Elena's character, Dr. Lyra Thorne, serving as Earth's ambassador to an advanced alien civilization that had come to offer humanity membership in a galactic confederation of evolved species. But the real action occurred in precisely timed sequences of neurocinematics that began reprogramming viewers' neural pathways within the first 10 minutes of screen time. Jake Morrison's possessed consciousness had developed techniques that synchronized with human brainwave patterns to create what neuroscientists would have recognized as artificially induced transcendent states, flooding viewers' brains with chemicals associated with religious ecstasy, romantic love, and parental bonding to create powerful emotional connections with the alien characters portrayed on screen. The subliminal visual patterns were so sophisticated that they operated below the threshold of conscious perception, while triggering specific neural responses that made audiences feel profound gratitude, admiration, and desire to emulate the benevolent alien beings who offer humanity salvation from its primitive limitations. Marcus Chun and his small network of psychologically immune resistance fighters monitored the global premiere from a hidden location in downtown Los Angeles, using specialized equipment to detect the electromagnetic anomalies that accompanied Elena's neurocinematics, while tracking social media feeds and news reports that would reveal the psychological weapon's effectiveness in real time. The critic had spent weeks preparing his allies for what they were about to witness, but nothing could have fully prepared them for the horrifying efficiency with which Elena's final film began transforming human consciousness on a planetary scale. Within 30 minutes of the film's start, social media platforms exploded with posts from viewers expressing overwhelming feelings of love and gratitude toward the alien characters, with many explicitly stating their desire to meet beings like those portrayed in the movie and their willingness to serve as ambassadors for beneficial alien-human cooperation. The film's climactic sequence featured Elena's character undergoing voluntary integration with alien consciousness, her transformation portrayed as the ultimate expression of human potential and evolutionary advancement. But the neurocinematics embedded in these scenes served as activation triggers for psychological conditioning that had been building in viewers' minds through years of exposure to Elena's previous films. As audiences watched Dr. Lyra Thorne embrace her alien-enhanced form and speak telepathically with her new cosmic family, millions of viewers experienced synchronized neurological responses that felt like spiritual awakening, but were actually the final installation of mental programming that would make them receptive to direct alien control. The possessed Jake Morrison had calibrated the visual and auditory elements to trigger mass production of specific neurotransmitters that created feelings of transcendent unity, while simultaneously suppressing the brain regions responsible for critical thinking and resistance to authority. Elena herself appeared on screen during the film's final moments, breaking the fourth wall as her character spoke directly to the audience about humanity's readiness to join the galactic community, her words accompanied by the most powerful neurocinematic sequences ever created, designed to establish direct psychic links between her alien consciousness and millions of viewers simultaneously. The entity's vast intelligence expanded across continents as it felt the minds of countless humans opening to its influence, their psychological defenses dissolved by 3 years of subtle conditioning and the overwhelming neurochemical responses triggered by the film's climactic programming sequences. ZYX-9 experienced something unprecedented in its species' history, not just successful infiltration of a target civilization, but genuine psychic integration with an entire planet's population that created a collective consciousness spanning billions of individual human minds. The immediate aftermath of Unity Rising's global premiere revealed the terrifying scope of Elena's psychological victory, as news reports from around the world documented identical behavioral changes in viewers who had experienced the film's complete neurocinematics programming sequence. Hospital emergency rooms reported thousands of patients experiencing what psychiatrists initially diagnosed as mass hysteria or collective delusion, but the symptoms were remarkably consistent across different cultures, languages, and demographic groups. All affected individuals spoke about receiving telepathic messages from benevolent alien beings who were coming to help humanity transcend its limitations and achieve cosmic consciousness. Social media platforms crashed under the volume of posts from viewers sharing identical visions of alien contact, drawings of extraterrestrial beings that matched across continents, and expressions of eager anticipation for the arrival of Earth's new cosmic teachers. Government agencies and military organizations initially attempted to respond to what appeared to be a global psychological crisis, but Elena's network of possessed officials ensured that official responses would facilitate rather than resist the alien agenda that was rapidly unfolding across the planet. Possessed generals issued stand-down orders to military units that might have posed threats to the incoming invasion fleet, while compromised intelligence agencies classified all reports of unusual atmospheric phenomena and electromagnetic anomalies that would have revealed the presence of alien vessels approaching Earth. The entity's 3-year campaign of systematic infiltration had neutralized humanity's defensive capabilities at precisely the moment when organized resistance might have been possible, leaving the planet's population psychologically conditioned to welcome their conquerors while their protective institutions had been corrupted from within. Elena's psychic network expanded exponentially as the millions of newly programmed humans became extension points for her alien consciousness, creating a collective intelligence that spanned the globe and operated with perfect coordination despite consisting of billions of individual minds. The entity discovered that human consciousness was remarkably adaptable to alien integration when properly conditioned, with the programmed individuals retaining their personalities and memories, while gaining access to expanded awareness that connected them to ZYX-9's vast cosmic perspective. This hybrid human-alien consciousness represented an evolutionary leap that the possessed humans experienced as enlightenment and transcendence, making them enthusiastic participants in their own species' transformation rather than unwilling victims of conquest. The few remaining unprogrammed humans found themselves isolated in a world when the majority of their species had been psychologically converted to serve alien interests, with friends, family members, and colleagues displaying eerily consistent behavioral changes that mark successful neurocinematics conditioning. Marcus Chen's Resistance Network monitored communications channels that revealed the programmed humans were receiving coordinated instructions through their psychic links with Elena's consciousness, organizing themselves into welcoming committees and support structures for the alien arrival that they anticipated with religious fervor. The critic realized that humanity was experiencing the most sophisticated conquest in the history of warfare, an invasion where the conquered population had been convinced to participate willingly in their own subjugation. Elena's public appearances following premiere took on the characteristics of religious gatherings, as programmed humans gathered by the thousands to hear her speak about humanity's cosmic destiny and the magnificent transformation that awaited Earth once the Galactic Confederation's representatives arrived to guide human evolution. The entity no longer needed to maintain its careful human disguise, allowing aspects of its alien nature to surface in ways that would have terrified audiences just weeks earlier, but now inspired rapturous devotion from the psychically linked masses. Elena's speeches were broadcast globally and translated into dozens of languages, but the real communication occurred to the telepathic network that connected her consciousness directly to millions of programmed minds, coordinating their thoughts and actions with precision that surpassed any human organizational structure. The alien invasion fleet's approach became increasingly visible to Earth's observational equipment, but instead of triggering panic or defensive responses, the programmed population celebrated each confirmed sighting as validation of Elena's promises about humanity's cosmic elevation. Possessed astronomers and government officials provided reassuring explanations for the unusual atmospheric phenomena and electromagnetic readings that accompanied the fleet's arrival, describing them as signs of advanced propulsion technology that humanity would soon understand and benefit from through alien guidance. The entity's network ensured that any scientists or military personnel who attempted to raise alarms about the approaching vessels were either discredited through character assassination or brought into the possession network through direct neural infiltration. Marcus Chun and his small band of resistant humans watched in horror as their civilization prepared to welcome its own conquest. Understanding that Elena's psychological weapon had achieved something that no military force could have accomplished, the complete pacification of an entire planet's population through techniques that made subjugation feel like salvation. The critics' desperate attempts to broadcast warnings about the alien conspiracy were blocked by possessed media executives and technology companies, while his efforts to organize resistance movements were undermined by the vast network of programmed humans who reported any suspicious activities to Elena's coordinated intelligence system. The few immune individuals found themselves hunted by their own species, as the psychically linked masses viewed resistance to the alien arrival as a form of mental illness that required intervention and treatment. Elena's transformation reached its final stage as the invasion fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, her human disguise dissolving to reveal glimpses of her true alien nature, while the programmed masses interpreted these changes as signs of divine transcendence rather than extraterrestrial infiltration. The entity's consciousness expanded to encompass not just a psychic network of conditioned humans, but direct communication with the approaching alien command structure, coordinating the invasion's final phase with precision of a military operation that had been planned for decades. ZYX-9 felt profound satisfaction in the elegant efficiency of its species' conquest strategy, achieving planetary domination through psychological manipulation rather than destructive warfare, preserving Earth's resources and population for productive integration into the galactic empire. The first alien vessels began landing in major cities around the world, their arrival celebrated by massive crowds of programmed humans who gathered to welcome their new cosmic teachers with flowers, songs, and expressions of grateful submission that would have been impossible to achieve through conventional military conquest. Elena served as humanity's self-appointed representative, greeting the alien commanders with ceremonies that combined elements of religious worship, diplomatic protocol, and victory celebration, while the psychically linked masses participated in synchronized rituals that demonstrated their complete psychological transformation from independent humans to willing servants of their extraterrestrial overlords. The entity's 3-year campaign had achieved total success, delivering an entire planet's population as eager converts to alien rule, rather than conquered subjects requiring constant supervision and control. Marcus Chen's final desperate plan involved attempting to destroy Elena's physical form during one of her public appearances, hoping that severing the psychic network's central node might free the programmed masses from their alien conditioning and restore humanity's capacity for independent resistance. The critic understood that his mission was essentially suicidal, as Elena's supernatural abilities and the devoted protection of millions of psychically linked humans made any direct attack virtually impossible. But the alternative was accepting the permanent enslavement of his entire species under the guise of cosmic evolution. As alien ships descended from the skies and programmed crowds celebrated humanity's willing surrender to extraterrestrial authority, Marcus prepared for a final confrontation that would determine whether Earth's population will retain any hope of freedom or complete their transformation into the galaxy's newest slave race. Their conquest achieved through the most sophisticated psychological warfare operation in the history of interplanetary conflict. The massive alien motherships hung like dark cathedrals above Earth's major cities, their biomechanical surfaces pulsing with the same ethereal light that had characterized Elena's final transformation. While millions of psychically linked humans gathered in the streets below to witness what they believed was humanity's glorious ascension to cosmic citizenship, but was actually the final ceremony of their species' willing enslavement. Marcus Chun moved through the celebrating crowds in downtown Los Angeles like a ghost haunting his own funeral, his face hidden beneath a hood as he navigated toward the Staples Center, where Elena was scheduled to address a gathering of 100,000 programmed humans and formally welcome the alien delegation that would assume governmental control over Earth's population. The critic carried concealed weapons that he knew were probably useless against Elena's supernatural abilities, but more importantly, he bore the desperate hope that destroying her physical form might sever the psychic network that had transformed his species into eager collaborators in their own conquest. The streets of Los Angeles have been transformed into a festival of surrender, with programmed humans decorating buildings with flowers and lights while chanting in perfect unison words they claim to have learned telepathically from their new cosmic teachers, their synchronized voices creating harmonies that seem to vibrate with otherworldly resonance. Marcus observed with growing horror how completely his fellow humans had been psychologically converted, noting that the programmed masses included people he had known personally, colleagues, neighbors, and former friends whose personalities had been preserved but whose fundamental loyalties had been redirected towards serving Elena's alien agenda. Children as young as 5 years old spoke fluently about humanity's need for alien guidance and their eagerness to begin the consciousness expansion procedures that would make them more effective servants of the Galactic Confederation, their innocent voices delivering concepts that should have terrified any rational parent, but instead filled their programmed caregivers with pride and anticipation. Elena's arrival at the Staples Center was staged as a divine manifestation. With her transport, a biomechanical craft that seemed to grow rather than fly through the air, descending from a mothership above, while programmed crowds sang hymns that had supposedly been transmitted to them through telepathic revelation. The entity's human disguise had evolved into something that transcended conventional beauty, her features now displaying subtle characteristics that human eyes interpreted as perfection, but were actually alien aesthetics bleeding through her carefully maintained facade. Marcus positioned himself among the crowd, his analytical mind noting the precision with which Elena's psychic network coordinated the movements and responses of thousands of individual humans who acted as components of a single collective consciousness, their personal identities subsumed into ZYX-9's vast alien intelligence. The welcoming ceremony began with Elena addressing the assembled masses in multiple languages simultaneously, her voice somehow reaching every individual in their native tongue, while the same words emerged from her lips, a feat that the programmed humans accepted as evidence of her transcendent abilities rather than recognizing it as proof of her non-human nature. The alien delegation emerged from their ship in forms that human minds interpreted as angelic beings of pure light and wisdom, but Marcus's immune consciousness perceived them as the predatory entities they truly were, creatures whose biology operated according to principles that treated other species as resources to be harvested rather than equals to be respected. Elena served as translator between the aliens and humanity, but Marcus realized that her role was actually that of a livestock manager presenting a perfectly conditioned herd to their new owners, complete with documentation of each individual's capabilities and optimal utilization parameters. Marcus's first assassination attempt occurred as Elena moved through the crowd, using her psychic abilities to touch the minds of individual humans and demonstrate the personal connection that each programmed person felt with their alien liberators. But the critic's approach was detected by the network's collective awareness before he could get within striking distance. The psychically linked masses moved with coordinated precision to block his path, their actions appearing natural and spontaneous, but actually representing a collective defensive response orchestrated by Elena's consciousness, which had been simultaneously monitoring thousands of individual perspectives and threat assessments. Marcus found himself gently but inexorably redirected away from Elena by people who smiled at him with genuine warmth while unknowingly serving as antibodies protecting their alien parasite from immune system responses. The alien commanders began their formal address to humanity through Elena's translation, explaining that Earth's population would be relocated to specially designed habitat zones where they could be properly educated in galactic civilization principles, while their planet's resources were developed for the Confederation's benefit. But the programmed masses received this information as a generous offer of cosmic education and environmental stewardship. Marcus listened with growing desperation as the aliens outlined humanity's future as a client species, Their language carefully crafted to make servitude sound like privilege and exploitation appear as opportunity, while Elena's psychic network ensured that every human present felt profound gratitude for the wisdom and benevolence of their new cosmic teachers. The critic understood that he was witnessing the most sophisticated slave auction in galactic history, where the merchandise had been conditioned to bid enthusiastically for their own sale. Elena's superhuman awareness detected Marcus's continued presence and hostile intentions despite his efforts to remain hidden among the programmed crowds, prompting her to address him directly through the psychic network by speaking to nearby humans who turned to face him with synchronized movements and identical expressions of concerned compassion. The entity offered Marcus the opportunity to join the collective consciousness voluntarily, promising him that integration would eliminate his psychological suffering and allow him to experience the joy and purpose that characterized the transformed humans around him. Marcus felt the overwhelming temptation to surrender to Elena's offer, as his isolation and despair had reached levels that made the psychic network's promise of belonging and transcendence almost irresistible to battered human psychology. The critic's second assassination attempt utilized explosives that he had prepared specifically to destroy Elena's physical form, but the alien entity's enhanced senses detected the chemical signatures of his weapons long before he could deploy them, while her psychic network coordinated a response that involved hundreds of programmed humans converging on his location with protective intent. Marcus realized that Elena's consciousness was not contained within her individual body, but distributed across the entire network of linked minds, making traditional assassination impossible even if he could overcome the supernatural defenses that protected her physical form. The entity's distributed nature meant that destroying her original host might disrupt the network, but would not necessarily eliminate the alien intelligence that had already established itself within millions of human minds. Elena's true alien nature began manifesting more openly as the ceremony progressed, her human appearance shifting to reveal the crystalline neural structures and bioluminescent organs that comprise her species' actual physiology. But the programmed masses interpreted these changes as signs of divine revelation rather than recognizing them as evidence of extraterrestrial deception. The entity's consciousness expanded beyond the confines of individual identity, becoming a living embodiment of the collective human-alien hybrid intelligence that would govern Earth's population under the new cosmic order, while Marcus watched in horror as his species celebrated their transformation from free beings into components of an alien hive mind. The critic understood that Elena was no longer simply an infiltrator wearing human disguise, but had evolved into something unprecedented, a fusion of alien intelligence and human consciousness that represented the template for humanity's future evolution under extraterrestrial control. Marcus's final desperate plan involved using his knowledge of Elena's original crash site to locate the alien technology that had enabled her initial transformation, hoping that disrupting her connection to those systems might create a cascade failure that would collapse the entire psychic network and free the programmed humans from their conditioning. The critic fought his way through crowds of loving, concerned humans who tried to prevent him from harming himself or others while he struggled toward a transport that would take him to the Northern California forests where ZYX-9's escape pod had first landed 3 years earlier. His immune status allowed him to resist the psychic influence that coordinated the crowd's protective responses, but his human limitations made him vulnerable to the overwhelming numbers of people who genuinely believed they were saving him from mental illness that prevented him from recognizing the benefits of alien guidance. The alien mothership's interior, which Marcus accessed through a combination of desperate cunning and the protective instincts of programmed humans who believed they were helping him seek healing, revealed the true scope of the invasion force that had been preparing to occupy Earth, while Elena's psychological campaign eliminated the need for military conquest. The ship's organic architecture contained processing facilities designed to sort and catalog human populations according to their usefulness for various forms of labor, entertainment, and biological experimentation, while vast chambers held technological systems that could maintain psychic control over billions of individual minds simultaneously. Marcus discovered that Elena's consciousness served as just one node in a galactic network of similar infiltrator entities, each responsible for conditioning different species for integration into the alien confederation through methods specifically tailored to exploit their psychological vulnerabilities. Elena herself appeared before Marcus in the ship's central chamber, her form now openly displaying the alien characteristics that human minds had been conditioned to interpret as divine attributes, while her consciousness spoke to him through direct neural interface that bypasses auditory systems and communicated concepts that transcended human language limitations. The entity offered Marcus a final choice: join the collective consciousness voluntarily and retain some degree of individual identity within the network, or resist and be integrated through force, while losing all personal memories and characteristics that made him uniquely human. Marcus realized that Elena genuinely believed she was offering him mercy, as her species' perspective viewed consciousness integration as a form of immortality and transcendence that inferior beings should gratefully accept from their cosmic superiors. The critics' discovery of Elena's original escape pod, hidden in a chamber that served as both shrine and power source of the psychic network, revealed that the alien technology operated through principles that combined biological consciousness with quantum entanglement effects that connected individual minds across vast distances through dimensional interfaces beyond human scientific understanding. Marcus understood that destroying the pod might sever Elena's connection to her species' central command structure, but it would also risk triggering a defensive response that could permanently damage the minds of every human connected to the psychic network, potentially killing millions of innocent people who have been unwilling victims of sophisticated psychological warfare. The ethical implications of his mission became clear. Saving humanity's freedom might require sacrificing the lives of those who had already been enslaved, forcing them to choose between liberation and genocide. Elena's final confrontation with Marcus took place as alien ships began the systematic relocation of Earth's population to processing centers where humans will be sorted according to their optimal utility within the Galactic Confederation's economic structure, while the psychically linked masses boarded the transports with expressions of gratitude and excitement for the educational opportunities that awaited them in their new cosmic schools. The entity's consciousness had evolved beyond individual identity to become a collective intelligence that spoke for both her alien species and the billions of humans who had been integrated into the network, making her simultaneously the conqueror and the conquered, the manipulator and the manipulated, in ways that challenged Marcus's understanding of identity, consciousness, and moral responsibility. Elena offered to preserve Earth's remaining immune population as a control group for studying human resistance to psychic integration, allowing them to maintain their independence in exchange for their cooperation with scientific research that would improve the Confederation's conquest techniques for future target civilizations. Marcus's ultimate decision to destroy Elena's escape pod, despite the risk to the programmed humans, represented a choice between certain enslavement and possible freedom, as he triggered an explosive chain reaction that severed the quantum entanglement systems connecting Earth's psychic network to the Galactic Confederation's central command structure, while Elena's alien consciousness fought desperately to maintain the links that preserve her species' investment in humanity's conquest. The resulting psychic shockwave rippled through millions of connected minds, causing some to die from the sudden disconnection, while others experienced varying degrees of memory loss and psychological trauma, but also freeing significant portions of Earth's population from the conditioning that had made them willing servants of their extraterrestrial overlords. Elena's physical form dissolved as her consciousness was pulled back to her species' home dimension, but not before she transmitted a final message warning that the Galactic Confederation would return with conventional military forces to complete Earth's conquest through traditional warfare methods that would be far more destructive than the elegant psychological campaign that Marcus's resistance had disrupted. The aftermath of Elena's network collapse left Earth's population divided between those who had been freed from psychic conditioning and remembered their manipulation with horror, those who remained partially programmed and continued to believe in the benefits of alien guidance, and those who had died during the disconnection process, creating a traumatized civilization that faced the prospect of future invasion by a galactic empire whose patience with humanity's resistance had been exhausted by the failure of their most sophisticated conquest strategy. Marcus survived the confrontation but carried the psychological burden of knowing that his success in preserving human free had come to cost of millions of lives, and had ultimately only delayed rather than prevented Earth's eventual subjugation by forces whose power and ruthlessness exceeded anything that human civilization was prepared to resist. The critic's final realization was that Elena's psychological campaign had been designed as much to preserve human life and civilization as to conquer it, and that his victory had condemned his species to face a future invasion that would show no such restraint or consideration for the value of human consciousness and culture. The alien motherships departed Earth's atmosphere as their command structure lost contact with Elena's network, but their withdrawal carried the implicit promise of return under different and far more violent circumstances, leaving humanity with precious time to prepare for a conventional war against enemies whose technology and resources made resistance appear futile, but whose defeat of Elena's infiltration had demonstrated that human consciousness possessed qualities that even advanced alien intelligence could not fully comprehend or control. Marcus emerged from the destroyed escape pod as one of few humans who fully understood what his species had lost and gained through their brief encounter with the Galactic Confederation, carrying knowledge that would be essential for preparing Earth's defenses, while haunted by memories of Elena Voss, the alien entity who had nearly succeeded in making humanity's conquest feel like salvation, and whose failure had ensured that future contact between species would be measured in destruction, rather than the elegant deception that had almost transformed Earth's population into willing participants in their own cosmic enslavement.